So this is the second class of Indian polity and constitution. First class, we have discussed some basic features of Indian polity and constitution. Right. So in the first class, we already had discussed about some recap you can take. We have discussed about nation and state, right? Why this happens? Why I can't? Okay. So we had discussed about nation and state. We have seen the difference also, and also we have discussed about state and government. We have seen the differences among them. Okay. Further, we have also discussed about the formation of means framing of Indian Constitution. Framing of Indian Constitution, and when the Constituent Assembly was established, who were the members, how they got elected, okay, indirectly elected, and at last we have discussed about some of the criticisms, of Constituent Assembly. So the video means whatever the last class, the lectures, the lecture video is already uploaded in the YouTube. First part is uploaded in the YouTube since the internet internet connectivity was the problem at that day. So the video got divided into two parts. The first part is already uploaded in the YouTube. Second part will be uploaded today with some modification because there need to be some editing needs requires that in that video, so that will get uploaded, so you can watch those. If you missed that first class, you can see there, you can watch there. So today we'll further some of the issues regarding Indian polity and constitutions. Today we'll discuss about the nature of Indian constitution. Nature of Indian constitution, how Indian constitution behaves, or Indian constitution, how it gives a sense of polity in India. So nature of Indian constitution, furthering this. So experts say that Indian constitution is federal in nature. See, this is federal in nature. Don't worry about it. We'll discuss what is federal and everything. We'll be discussing it. I'll make you understand in a simplest way what federal or federalism is. So experts say that Indian constitution is federal in nature, and some independent expert called it quasi-federal, not federal, not complete federal, call it quasi-federal. So whether Indian constitution is federal or it is quasi-federal, we will decide today. Means in this class, we will decide ourselves, and you will be able to decide yourself that whether our constitution is federal or it is quasi-federal. Quasi means if you see the dictionary, quasi means says that uh, it appears something else appears something else than actually it is. क्वासी मीन्स इट appears समथिंग else than actually it is. मतलब होता है कि वो देखने में जैसा लगता है ओरिजिनली वैसा है नहीं, या ओरिजिनली जैसा है वो इन बिहेवियर और इन प्रैक्टिकल सेंस वैसा एक्चुअली होता नहीं है. तो देखने में कुछ और इन प्रैक्टिकल सेंस कुछ और. So appears something else then actually it is. That is the means of quasi. So Indian constitution, whether it is quasi or quasi-federal, we will decide later on. But first of all, what is federation? What is federation? First of all, just see what is federation. Okay, let me take a new page. What is federation? Okay, federation means at the means very beginning, for the first time, started in America. Federalism or federal system or system of federal, for the first time, very beginning, it started in America, and gradually other countries adopted it in a different forms. So India also, after independence, after framing the constitution, India also adopted some sort of federalism. Okay. So in America, what it happens, or what it happened, that America was under British rule. America was under British rule. Small factions were there, and these small factions were under British rule. Total, there were 13 states. If we see, when did America got independence? Can anybody say? When did America got independence? No issue? America got independent in the year 1776 from Britishers. It was under British. America was also under British, like we were under British. So America was also under British, and Britishers finally left America in the year 1776. So at that time, in the year 1776, there were 13 states in total. 13 states in total. So when the Britishers left, all these 13 states, they got independence. All these 13 states, they got independence. And they started their own international affairs, trade, defense, all kinds of securities systems and trade systems, bilateral relations. They individually started. But some of the states, they felt that if we all come together, and make an organization, that will be more feasible or more beneficial for running international relations, and at least for defense, for immigration policy, for defense, for immigration policy, and also for bilateral relations. Also for bilateral relations. So what they did for 10 years, 10, 12 years, they kept on deciding, they kept on doing their own, and finally, in the year 1789, they sat together at a place called Philadelphia. And they sat together. That is also known as Philadelphia Convention. They sat together in a Philadelphia Convention, and they enacted American Constitution together. So in Philadelphia Convention, 1789, Constitution of America, that is USA, was enacted in Philadelphia Convention. And in this convention, they decided themselves that we will be adopting a feature of federalism. will be adopting a feature of federalism. See, federalism, why they named it federalism, or why they want to adopt this federalism itself? Because see, so they enacted a central body, and these are the states, small states. There were 13 states. Right now there are 50 states in America. Right now 50. At that time there were 13 only. So they gave some of the powers. So see, they were independence. These 13 states, after Britishers left, they got independence. They were independent. They were not dependent on any others. So they were independent. They had some sort of powers, independent powers, that they do not want to shed off. They do not want to give up those powers to other some organizations, other some bodies. So what they did, they said, okay, we will adopt some of the powers, we'll give some of the powers, but at the same time we will retain our independence. Means they will remain independent, but at the same time they will be under the center. Okay, so they decided a unique form of separation of powers, that is federalism. Federalism is nothing but a separation of power. Federalism is separation of power, and this separation of power, the theory of separation of power was given by Montesquieu. Montesquieu was a French, we can say, political scientist, or political scientist, we can say. So Montesquieu, he gave the theory of separation of power. So he said that there are three organs of the government. If you have read that working of Indian Constitution, that NCRT, what I have posted in the group, if you have read that, you might just recall it, that separation of powers, the Montesquieu said that there are three organs of the government, that is executive, legislature, and judiciary. Three organs of the government: executive, legislature, and judiciary. And Montesquieu said that these all should be independent, should not be dependent on each other, for better rules and regulations, or we can say the rule of law, without any biased situations. So Montesquieu said that they should be independent of each other, should not be dependent on anyone. So executive is entirely independent, legislature is entirely independent, judiciary is entirely independent, as per the Montesquieu. Same system, the American Constitution, when it has been framed, the state adopted the same system. States of America, the 13 states, adopted the same system. They decided, okay, some of the subjects, whatever the subjects we will shed off, will be given to the center. Whatever the subjects will be given to the center will have exclusive right to govern on those subjects. States will not interfere. And whatever the subjects states will have, center will not interfere. So both, they separated their domain of working, the subjects upon which they will work. They will frame policies, they will frame laws, regulations. So they separated this. So they implemented separation of power, and they remained independence. They remain independent, and at the same time they have already given some of the powers to center. So this is the federation, this is federalism. But in India, we have different types of federalism. In India, there were states, means small, means at the time of independence, there were kingdoms, princely states. Okay, so many kingdoms, princely states. So kingdoms, princely states, there were many. Means princely states, you can say, kingdoms, princely states are the kingdoms only, and the British provinces. So where the states where British were ruling, British provinces and princely states. So about 565 princely states were there at the time of independence. Okay, and India got independence in 1947, and they enacted a center. They enacted a center under cabinet mission plan. Yesterday, what we had discussed. So India created a center, and all states who were the small factions under the British now got independence, or the princely states. This center, united all the states. This center united all the states, either by way of conventions or by forcefully, whatever, like Hyderabad, Junagadh. This Junagadh was incorporated into India through a plebiscite referendum, and Hyderabad was incorporated by police threat. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel did that. Okay, so that's why he was known as, he is still known as the Iron Man of India. So here the center created the state, center united all the states and created it. Means if some of the states were too big, so some of the areas were included in the other states. If some of the states are too big, some of the areas are included in the other states. So center created state. So in India, it is opposite. In America, it were the states who created center. In America, states created center, but in India, center created states. And that's why center has more power. Center has more power. But what federalism says? What federalism says? Federalism says that power should be distributed and no one will interfere upon each other's powers. No one will interfere upon each other's powers. But federalism is complete separation of power. But in India, center has more power, state has less power, states are subordinate to center. States are subordinate to centers. State cannot be independent, completely independent. No. States are under center. So this is federalism. This is federalism. Separation of power is the federalism. Now coming to our point. So what is federalism? So federation is all about the presence of dual government. Just I said, the government at the center and the government at the state. The presence of dual government, there should be. But in United Kingdom, it is a unitary form of government. United Kingdom, it means Britain. It means Britain. Britain has a unitary form of government. USA, federal, complete federal. USA is known as a classic example of federalism. Means in USA, there is a complete separation of power. But in India, India too have center and states. We have center, we have various types of states, 29 states, we have 28 states we have right now, right? 28 or 29? How many states are there? How many states are there right now? And how many union territories are there? Can anybody say?
28 states and 9 union territories.
Is it 9?
Yeah.
Confirm?
Yes, sir. It is.
It's 8 union territories, not 9. There are 8 union territories right now, not 9. Earlier there were 7 union territories. Earlier there were 7 union territories when Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir has been divided into 2 union territories. The statehood has been taken from Jammu and Kashmir, and J&K has been divided into 2 union territories, that is Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. And at the same time, Daman and Diu. Daman and Diu, these 2 union territories have been merged together to form one. So 7 were earlier plus 2. 7 were earlier plus 2 and then minus 1. Then Daman and Diu that became together, so minus 1. So there are 8 union territories right now in India. Yes.
Sir, actually, hello, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, actually, Daman and Diu is merged with Dadar and Nagar Haveli.
Acha, okay. Daman and Diu is merged with Dadra and Nagar Haveli. Dadra and Nagar Haveli. So Daman and Diu is together, and Dadra and Nagar Haveli has been merged with. So there are 8 union territories right now. Correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Keep in mind, so questions may come from this because this is a confusing facts right now. So unitary form. In India, we have center and states. So the power is like we have center and states. Hence, our constitution distributes power to the center and state separately. So our constitution has schedule 7. At last means when you open the constitution book, at the last side you will get the schedules. Schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3, like 12 schedules are there. And 7th schedule deals with separation of power, or the subjects are divided among center, union list, state list, and concurrent list. Union list, state list, and concurrent list. So whatever the subjects are under union list, union government is free to make all kinds of legislations regarding those subjects. Whatever the subjects are under state list, state governments are free to legislate on those subjects. And concurrent list, some of the subjects are left for both union as well as states. So both are required, union as well as states are required to manage those subjects. Hence, some of the subjects have been put on the concurrent list to be managed by both union and states. So both creates laws and regulations on the concurrent list. Both center and state, both creates laws and regulations on the concurrent list. So Schedule 7 gives a separation of power. Schedule 7 gives a separation of power. Right now, union list contains 100 subjects. 100 subjects. Just remember this. Recently, many of the subjects have been added. Earlier there were 93, then 97, and right now it has 100. So just remember the present one. Right now, the central list or union list has 100 subjects. State list has 66 subjects, and concurrent list has 52 subjects. Just remember it: 100, 66, and 52. Okay. So in India, we have separation of powers. Our subjects are divided among states and center, right? Our subjects are divided among states and centers. But the question is, why do we need federation? Why do we need federation? Why can't we run without federation, or we govern without federation? Why do we need federation? Right now, we discussed that America got independence in the year 1776. There were 13 states together. And the year 1789, in the year 1789, they created a constitution in the Philadelphia Convention. Philadelphia Convention, 13 states came together and created a constitution, framed their own constitution. But in India, center decided to create states. Just keep in mind the Indian scenario and American scenario. Compare it both. Okay. So in Philadelphia Conventions, they created their constitution. So what they did, they compromise the power of the state, whatever the powers the states has or states had, the compromise between power of the states and they gave some of the powers to the center. The state gave some of the powers to the center. So what they did, they compromised their independence, shedding some of the powers, shedding some of the subjects to center, to other body. That means compromising its independence. So they compromised their independence, and at the same time, there were compromisation also regarding their full integrations. They thought that will not get fully integrated. We will be independent, but at the same time, some of the powers we will be giving the center. So they decided in a form of compromise that we will remain independence and we will be fully integrated also. So suppose if there will be full integration, means there are no powers to states and all the powers only the center has. That becomes a unitary form of government, like United Kingdom. That becomes unitary form of governance. If suppose full independence are given to the states, then also it violates the subjects of integration. It means they became a independent country, independent nation. They are going to be. If full independence is given to any state, that state will become a separate country, independent country. And if full power are being given to the center, it becomes a unitary form of polity, unitary form of governance system. So what they did, they thought that, okay, we are not giving all the powers. So we will establish the system of federation. We will be establishing dual polity, dual form of government, that is government at the federal, means center, and government at the state level. And neither is subordinate to the other. Neither will be subordinate to the other, but they will be coordinating each other. And they will be independent within their sphere allotted to them. Whatever the subjects have been allotted to them, they will be free to act upon. And they will be remaining within their limit only. They will not interfere in the other's sphere. So the existence of coordinate authorities, independent of each other, is the gist of federal principle. This is the gist of federal principle. Means they are independent of each other. This is the gist of federal principle. So there are some characteristics, essential characteristics of federation or federalism. So let's see that. So being federal or being federation, the power, the distribution, there should be a distribution of power. Distribution of power between center and states. Distribution of power between center and states. This should be there. This is one of the essential characteristics. There are totally 5 essential characteristics of federation. The first is a distribution of power. There should be distribution of power. So a true federation has its power well distributed between central government and state government or organic units, what we have. Second, supremacy of the constitution. There should be a constitution which should be supreme, adhered by both center as well as states. The central government as well as state governments derive their powers from the constitution. And no one, neither center nor the state government, should be in a position to override whatever is being written or whatever has been mentioned in the constitution. So there should be some of the provisions, there should be some of the ways and means to adhere all the provisions of the constitution. So that is supremacy. They both, center as well as states, both they should adhere to the constitution strictly. They should not work differently, or we can say in an independent manner. There should be a written constitution. Of course, constitution should be a written one. So a federal constitution must necessarily be a written one. Why written one? This is basically to demarcate the boundaries, demarcate the areas. Like you have this much area, you have this much subjects, this many subjects, and you can act upon these subjects only. Center can act upon those subjects, state can act upon those subjects. Both of their subjects are clearly demarcated. And there should not be any confusion, conflict. Okay, this is my subject, I will legislate on this. You cannot legislate on this. You cannot make any laws regarding this. So there should not be any confusion. For that, there should be a written provisions in the form of constitution. There should be a rigidity of the constitution. Rigidity. Rigidity means, see, rigidity, constitution is dynamic. We say constitution is dynamic. Dynamic means the provisions of the constitution changes as the time changes. Means when earlier there were no provisions regarding, not in the constitution, but earlier there were no provisions. Earlier there were no computers. Take an example. When India got independence, there were no computers. So there were no any system of privacy kind of thing. There were no privacy system were there, but there were no violation of privacy, like online violation of privacy right now. And the center has also enacted some of the legislations. Okay. Then cyber crime, there were no cyber crimes. So we never thought about enacting cyber security laws. But now, as the time improves, the new inventions, the new discoveries happens, we incorporate all the provisions to secure ourselves. So we bring changes into the constitution in the form of amendments. We bring amendments to the constitution. There are certain provisions through which we bring amendments to the constitution, and we change the provisions according to the present scenario of our need and our requirements. That's why constitution is dynamic. Our constitution is dynamic. Dynamic means we can change the provisions. We can bring amendments. But here it says rigidity of the constitution. Rigidity means, it does not mean that we cannot amend the constitution. We can certainly amend the provisions of the constitution. We can bring changes as per the present requirements. But that should not be very simple. That amendability should not be very simple. That amendability should be and should give some of the responsibility to either federal government, central government, or the states. Should give some of the responsibility. So it says rigidity does not mean unamendability of the constitution. Does not mean unamendability of the constitution, but simply means the power of amending the constitution, especially those regulating the status and powers of federal and state governments. When those are the provisions which sets the relationship between states and government. It deals with the relationship between states and center. So whatever the provisions are there which deals with the relationship between state and centers should be amended taking consideration of both state as well as government, central governments or the union. This power should not be confined to either states or either center. They should be coordinating each other. So Indian constitution is, in some form it is rigid, and in some form it is very simple. So we have simple majority. We will be studying this, what is simple majority. Like while enacting any laws in the parliament, how many persons supports, means after debates and discussions, how many persons, means how many parliamentarians, how many members they support it. So there are some different types of majority. Simple majority, we have special majority, we have absolute majority. Right? Simple majority, special majority, absolute majority. So different types of majority we have. It means like only if 50% person can support, 50% of the person plus one can support, that can enact a law, and 2/3 is required. 2/3 members required to support any particular law, whatever the number of present members are there. Upon all the members, 2/3 members must support that particular legislation to be enacted. So we have all kinds of majority. Means we have simple majority, means simply we can change the provisions. We have special majority, absolute majority, right? So we are rigid. Our constitution is rigid. Our constitution provides some form of rigidity, but at the same time, this is not complete rigidity. We cannot, means it does not say that you cannot amend, you cannot change any provision of the constitution. You can change the provisions. Whatever required provisions are there, provisions can be changed as per the rules. As per the rules, like different majorities, that can be changed. It cannot be in arbitrary manner. That requires, and especially the provisions which deals with states and center relation, that should conform the consent of both states as well as center. That should conform. So this is the rigidity of the constitution. So there should be, our constitution, whatever the constitutions are there, there should be rigid. And the authority of the courts, there should be a court, apex court, and that court should be independent to take any sort of decisions. Independent to take any sort of decisions. So court, if the parliament enacts a law, and some of the provisions of the laws, this enacted law is not inconsistent with the constitution, does not favor the provisions of the constitution, the Supreme Court declares those provisions or entire law as void or unconstitutional. Declares entire law unconstitutional. For example, National Judicial Accountability Commission. This has been enacted by the Parliament. Both the houses, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, both the houses has passed this. President has assented also. This became an act, but when it goes to the Supreme Court rejected it and said that this is unconstitutional. Supreme Court said that this is unconstitutional. So this National Judicial Accountability Commission was dealing with the appointment of judges. Appointment of judges in Supreme Court, High Court, like. So this National Judicial Appointment Commission has been declared by the Supreme Court that this is unconstitutional, this cannot be. So like Supreme Court has the power to decide upon any law, whether that particular law is inconsistent with the Constitution or not. So Supreme Court is an independent authority and it decides. So like similar, Supreme Court or some judicial authority should be there to decide upon or to have a check and balance upon the laws or legislatures, upon the parliaments. So this Supreme Court keeps checks and balance upon the parliament, that okay, you can enact law, you are free to enact laws, everything, but you are not free to violate any of the provisions of the Constitution. You are not free to violate any of the provisions of the Constitution. So that is the authority of the court. So these 5 provisions are essential characteristics of Indian Federation. Essential characteristics of Indian Federation. Right? Essential characteristics, I means these 5 provisions must be there to call that particular polity or particular state a federation. Right? So what were those provisions? Just to recall it, distribution of power was the first. So first was the distribution of power. First was the distribution of power. Second was supremacy of the Constitution. Third was written constitution. Written constitution. Fourth was rigidity. Rigidity of the Constitution. And the fifth was, of course, authority of the court. Authority of the court. So these 5 features are essentially needed, means very essential for any polity to be called as a federal system. So do you think these 5 provisions are present in India? Just now we discussed, we have distribution of powers. Yes, we have Schedule 7 in the Indian Constitution, which distributes subjects among union list, state list, as well as concurrent list. Right? We have distribution of power. We have supremacy of the Constitution. Yes, of course, we have supremacy of the Constitution. We both center as well as the states both adhere to the provisions of the Constitution. We have supremacy of the Constitution. We do have written Constitution. We do have written Constitution. We do have rigidity of the Constitution. That means Constitution is not very easy to amend, and at the same time it is not very or not completely hard or completely bears itself to make any changes, to bring any changes. So that is rigidity of the Constitution. Yes, we do have rigidity in the Constitution, and also we have the authority of the court to decide upon all the things. So do you think that Indian Constitution is federal? Yes? Anyone? Do you think that the Indian Constitution is federal? Dipankar?
Yes, sir. The Indian Constitution is sometimes unitary and sometimes federal in its provisions.
Yes, sometimes unitary, sometimes. So till now, we saw that all the necessary or essential features are present in the constitution. Necessary essential features of federalisms are present in the constitution. Till now, we have seen that. But at some of the time, means then why some of the independent experts call it a quasi-federal? Why some of the independent expert call it a quasi-federal? There may be some of the provisions, there may be some of the reasons, right?
Yes, sir. Sometimes it's act as an unitary kind of constitution. That's why, like in case of emergency, like
Okay.
yeah, like central government is more empowered to take over the state things. That's why.
Yes, yes. Yes, that is right. Okay, we'll discuss that. So, Indian constitution is not completely federal. It is clear, like with your discussion, with your argument. So let's see the Indian situation, how the Indian situation is there. So the provisions of Indian constitution clearly highlights the fact that the form of government inherent in it has all the necessary features of the federal polity. Yes, right. We have dual polity, union government, state government, central government, state government, and both work under their periphery allotted to them. Each enjoy their power clearly demarcated by the constitution. That is Schedule 7. Our constitution is written supreme. Then the court has power to decide also. And in the Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973, in the Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973, it has been brought, means the court brought a special feature of the constitution, basic feature, basic features. The court, this is a court interpretation, means this basic feature is nowhere written in the constitution. So the court in Kesavananda Bharati case 1973, this gave interpretation that some of the our constitution has some of the basic features, some of the basic features. So whatever the parliament does, it should not take away these basic features of the constitution. Okay. And under Article 368, the parliament has the power to amend any of the provisions of the constitution. Any of the provisions of the constitution, parliament can change. And finally, Supreme Court, they will review whatever the changes is being mentioned by the parliament. But at the same time, some of the features are there in the Indian constitution which are unitary in character, which seems or which are being called non-federal features. Being unitary, it is being called non-federal features, and that violates the principle of federalism. So let's see what are the provisions which violates the principle of federalism. So in the USA and Australia, we will compare at the same time. We'll be comparing other states also, like USA, basically USA, Australia, and United Kingdom. Like, because we were the base on United Kingdom, they ruled upon us, and whatever the system we have, all systems we have adopted from them only. So we will be referring to United Kingdom, USA also, Australia also. Means, see, when the Indian Constitution was being framed, so the framers of the Constitution have studied the Constitution of about 60 countries or 60 nations, or we can say country or states. About 60 states. They studied the constitution of 60 states and they incorporated those provisions which were very necessary to Indian context. They filtered it, they changed it in the Indian context, and they adopted it. So USA and Australia, they have their own constitution. Like in USA and Australia, the center has their own constitution, and states do have their own constitution in USA and in Australia. So whatever the powers are being given to the central constitution, center will abide upon that. Whatever the powers are given to the states, states will abide upon that. So in USA and Australia, both state and center, they have their different constitution. But in India, we have no separate constitution. We have only one constitution, deals entirely with all provisions related to center as well as state. See, they have separation of power. What center does, center will do. What state does, state will do. They have different constitution also, separate constitution also. India does not have separate constitution. One violation of federal principle, basic violation, not major, basic violation of federal principle. Then India follows a unitary form or uniform single citizenship, principle of uniform single citizenship. We have single citizenship. We are Indian, it means we are Indian. But in USA and in Australia, the state also provides separate citizenship to the residents of residentials or the citizens of those states. The states also provides citizenship. We do not have citizenship in Maharashtra. We do not have citizenship in West Bengal. We do not have citizenship in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh. We do not have separate citizen. We have only one citizenship that validates all over India. So we have single citizenship. State has no power to allow citizenship. This is also one of the violation of federal principle, because in Australia and in USA, both they provide citizenship to their fellow citizens. In USA, it is not possible for the federal government, federal means central government, to unilaterally change the territorial extent of a state. Means suppose we have 28 states. So suppose this is the boundary of one state, this is the boundary of second state, this is the boundary of third state, this is the boundary of fourth state. Okay, but center wants to create a more state here, create a more states here, but this place is too short, too small to create a state or to give a separate state. So what they do, they acquire some of the territory from this state and some of the territory from this state, and they create a new state. So for creating a new state, center alone has power. State do not have any say in this. See, center asks for the opinion. Under Article 3, center asks for the opinion of the states. Means president asks opinion of the state that your state is going to be divided into two parts, or means your state is going to be bifurcated or demarcated, whatever. So say president asks the opinions, and center, when center says no, we are not ready to get bifurcated, or we are not ready to get divided into two. If it says yes, center can do. If it says no, still center can do. Center does not listen to the state. So it means center has more power in demarcation of boundaries, areas of the state, renaming of the state. Center has more power. Center has more power. When national emergency is there, national emergency happens on two grounds: external means internal armed rebellion, okay, internal armed rebellion, and external aggression. Means when China attacks on India, means the central government can declare that okay, we are in national emergency. Or when there will be internal armed rebellion, means the person residing in India or the citizens of India, they take arms, ammunition to fight with the government. At that time also national emergency can be established. Okay, so national emergency, the provisions are being given under Article 352. Under Article 352. So when there is national emergency, Parliament now becomes eligible to enact laws and regulations or enact legislations on the state list, on all matters, on all subjects of the state list. It means state subject, whatever the subjects were in the state list, these subjects gets changes into concurrent list. The subject changes into concurrent list. And since state has no authority at that time, at the time of emergency, the parliament acquires all the powers to enact legislations upon the state list, all the provisions, all the subjects of the state list. So thus in one stroke, by only implementing emergency under Article 352, Parliament takes away all the federal features, whatever the features are being written in the Constitution. Parliament takes away all the federal features and means all the separation of powers. Everything is being taken away by the Parliament in one stroke. This is a unique character of Indian Federation. Unique character of Indian Federation. So remember Article 352, and under Article 3, separate states can be established with or without the consent of Parliament. Parliament means without the consent of the state, and the state has no say in this. So under Article 3, it gives more power to the center. Article 352, this also gives more power to the center. Then Schedule 7, we discussed many times. Schedule 7, it distributes power between union list, state list, and center list. Just now we discussed that union list has 100 subjects, state list has 66 subjects, and concurrent list has 52 subjects. But further, in the event of conflict, suppose like on concurrent list, both state and center can enact legislation or can legislate. Both can legislate. But suppose there is a particular subject upon which both state and center has legislated or created a law, enacted a law, then whose law will prevail? Either center or states. Any one law will prevail. So states' law will get quashed and the central law prevails. Here also the center has upper hand. The center has upper hand, more power. The state will give way to the central legislation without any contradiction, without any condition. Other way, we have central, we have union list, we have state list, and we have concurrent list, and the subjects are being mentioned in this. But there are some other subjects which are not at all mentioned in neither in union list, nor in state list, nor in concurrent list. There are subjects. So those subjects which are not mentioned in neither of these three, not mentioned here, those subjects become the residuary power of the central government. Those subjects become the residuary power of the central government, and central or union can enact, can legislate on those laws. This system, this residuary powers or the system of residuary legislation, this has been taken from the Canadian model. Okay, Canada. So this power means the legislating on the residuary subjects is the power of union. State have no say, no interference on this. But USA and Australia both can legislate. They have different systems. Okay, so we have difference. We have unique. We are unique in the sense we are unique. Under Article 249, see under Article 249, Rajya Sabha passes resolutions not less than 2/3 majority. With not less than 2/3 majority. 2/3 majority means suppose if 500. Achha, okay, tell me how many members are there in Parliament? Who will tell this? Who will say this?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, 543 members.
540.
543.
Sure.
545.
But what Constitution says? The Constitution says there shall be 550 members in the Parliament, in the Lok Sabha. Means I'm talking about Lok Sabha, not Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha also.
Okay.
In Lok Sabha 550, the constitution ensures that 550 members should be there, but there is 545. And in Rajya Sabha, there are 245. Okay. Constitution says 250, but in actual sense, there are 245 members in Rajya Sabha. So what do you think is 5 members, why the 5 members are absent? Different question. Why these 5 members are absent? Anyone? The constitution says in Lok Sabha there should be total 550 members, and in Rajya Sabha there should be 250 members. But in actual sense, there are 545 members in Lok Sabha and 245 members in Rajya Sabha. Why is this? Why this is so? See, we call Pak occupied Kashmir. You know, Pak occupied Kashmir in 1948. 1948, the Pakistan has attacked on India, or in Jammu and Kashmir. It was independent kingdom ruled by Raja Hari Singh, King Hari Singh. So it was independent kingdom. Pakistan attacked on it and occupied some of the areas. And those areas are now called Pak or Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Okay. We do not have members from this area. We do not have members in our parliament from this area, from this Pak occupied Kashmir. That's why we keep these 5 seats vacant, considering that this Pak occupied Kashmir is our territory, and someday these 5 members will come from this place. This we keep it as a empty. Okay, so whatever. So this Rajya Sabha, this was some extra facts. Okay, you must keep in mind. So under Article 249, Rajya Sabha has power to, means Rajya Sabha passes a resolution. Rajya Sabha says that okay, we are passing resolutions, and Rajya Sabha represents the states only. So when Rajya Sabha passes resolution with two-third majority, with two-third means 545 of two-third. What will be there? How much it will be there? About 73. So with the two-thirds majority, whatever the Rajya Sabha passes, Rajya Sabha is 245, sorry, 245. So whatever the Rajya Sabha passes a resolution with two-third majority, and it authorizes the Rajya Sabha by passing a resolution with two-thirds majority, it authorizes Parliament to make laws on the subjects of states list, in national interest. Here it means the Parliament, the Rajya Sabha authorizes Parliament to take away the rights of the states while enacting laws. And such laws will be in force for 1 year and can be extended in number of time, but not once, not more than 1 year. 1 year means एक बार में एक साल के लिए बढ़ाया जाएगा, एक साल से ज्यादा नहीं, but can be extended any number of time. So हर साल बढ़ाते जाएगा उसको. Article 249. Article 250. Under Article 250, national emergency is declared, and when national emergency is declared, all the subjects in the state lists automatically gets converted or transformed into the concurrent list. And concurrent list has power of both central government, union government, or state government to enact laws. Under Article 252, state legislatures of two or more states can request Parliament to legislate on any matters, on any particular matters, and the Parliament, that's so, Parliament enacts. If two or more states ask the parliament or request the parliament, okay, this subject is important and you can legislate upon these subjects and bring a legislation, the parliament does so. Under Article 253, Parliament can make laws even on the state list to comply with the international agreements. If there are international agreements with America, with USA, with United Kingdom, with France, whatever, the bilateral relations or multilateral relations, international agreements. So Parliament can bring changes in the state list to comply with the international agreements. Under Article 356, under Article 356, when laws and constitutional machineries are being failed in the state, the parliament or the central government, whatever, the central government imposes a precedent rule. The central government imposes precedent rule in that particular state. If the constitutional machinery fails, this one word is important. In only case when the constitutional machinery fails, the parliament imposes precedent rule under Article 356. So when parliament imposes precedent rule, all the legislative powers of that particular states are being taken away by the center. All legislatures, all kinds of legislations will be done by the center only. The center will legislate upon all the subjects of that state. Under Article 265, see here it was 356. Under Article 365, if center says the state to do something, to suppose they have brought Constitutional Amendment Act, Citizenship Amendment Act right now in 2019, and some of the states are rejecting it. Okay, we are not implementing this. But when the center says you must have to implement this Citizenship Amendment Act, and still the state refuses to implement, it means state does not adheres to the union or the center. State does not adheres to the center. In that case, under Article 356, center can impose precedent rule. Center can impose precedent rule saying that the state is failed to comply with the orders of the center, and center can impose precedent rule. So here the center takes away all the powers of states. Under Article 155, governors are being appointed in the states. Without any considerations and any sort of connection from the state government. State government has no say to decide upon who can be appointed, how they can be appointed. Under Article 312, all India services, like you are going to be IAS and IPS. When you will be IAS and IPS, the central government selects you as an IAS and IPS, and central government sends you to the states. If you select a particular state cadre, you will be sent to that particular state, and center selects it and sends them to the state. It means state has no authority in the selection process. And also center sends it to the state. It means all remunerations, salaries will be provided by the states to that IAS person. State will provide all salaries, all facilities, all privileges, all facilities like housing, car, everything, all facilities. State will provide with its own cost. And center, and even if this particular IAS person, it violates some of the if center says, okay, you have to do such things, you have to do such things, and this person says, no, I won't do, it does not comply with the state's, suppose if this IS person does not comply with the state's order, the state has no power to dismiss that particular person. The state has no power. State can only take disciplinary action. State can only take disciplinary action. State can suspend, state can ask some of the reply, some of the answers, but cannot dismiss. So the dismissal power remains with the union only. Power of dismissal remains with the union. So this is also one of the imposition upon states by the center. Under Article 217, judges of the High Court appointed by the President, they are in consultation with the governors, and the state do not play any role in this. State do not play in any role in this. So these were some of the provisions. These were some of the provisions which says that, or which says that Indian Constitution acquires unitary character. Some of the times, when time permits. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, said that Indian political system is both. Indian political system is both, that is unitary, as well as federal. Indian system is both unitary as well as federal. This unitary as well as federal, it becomes as per the requirements of the time. So Indian Constitution is unitary as well as federal as per the requirements of the time. This was the words of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Okay. Various persons, various, like Professor K.C. Ware, he says that Indian Constitution is quasi-federal. He was the first person to say that Indian Constitution is quasi-federal. Means जैसा दिख रहा है वैसा है नहीं. It is different. देखने में एक जैसा और होने में एक जैसा. So Indian Constitution is quasi-federal. He declared it. Professor K.C. Ware declared it as a quasi-federal, that whenever the time requires, it acquires the unitary character, and whenever the time permits, it becomes a federal. Granville Austin. He says that Indian federalism is cooperative federalism. Granville Austin says that Indian federalism is cooperative federalism. So, in all sense, now just tell me, how do you classify or how do you characterize Indian Constitution? What is the nature? What can be the nature of Indian Constitution? Tell me, just you have to tell me. Okay, yes. Anybody? Am I audible? Please say, anybody, how you are going to characterize, or means what should be the nature? We have discussed all features, everything we are clear with. We are not federal. right? We have all system of federation, essential characteristics of federation, but still we are unitary in character. Some we acquire unitary features when the time permits. So how you are going to characterize it?
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So, the nature of Indian polity can be characterized as federal with a unitary bias, like it leans toward uh, being unitary.
Okay, good. Any other person? Anyone else? See, you have to speak. This is going, means today it happened only one way communication. I spoke everything, you did not. Yes, Dayanidhi. Am I audible, Dayanidhi? Please say. Okay, right, means rightly said by Dipankar, like Indian constitution acquires unitary character whenever the time permits, and hence it has been characterized as a quasi-federal. Quasi-federal in nature. Indian constitution is quasi-federal in nature. Are you clear? You have any questions? Anybody has any questions regarding this? Any question? So there is no question, right? So we'll keep it here today. We'll see the next topics day after tomorrow. So our next class will be our next class will be 5th of June, 11 a.m. You'll get the notes, and this video will also be uploaded into the YouTube. So if you have any questions right now, you can raise here. And if you get any questions later on, you can raise in the group also, Telegram group also. So there is no issue. Okay. So if you have any questions, raise it. I'll give you 1 minute. Anyone? Or if you want any modification in the way of teaching. Is it understandable by you? All you can means you're getting everything.
Yes, sir. It's understandable.
So if you require any changes, or if you need me to be more simple also, I can be more simple. But I don't think being more simple will benefit more. You have to be sometimes some sort of, you can say, understanding the difficult things also. So this level is okay. We can be more difficult also, but this level is okay. But for mains, if you are preparing for mains, this level will go more difficult also. But for now, this level is good. And if you have any questions, Mukesh, if you have any questions, Pranita, I cannot name everyone, so tell me please. You have any questions? See, it happens either two things. Either you have understood everything, that's why you do not have any questions, or you do not have understood anything, that's why you do not have any questions. There may be possibility of two things. So I assume the first one, that you have understood everything. Still, if you have any questions, you can raise it in the group. Yes, Akshay?
Sir, nothing, sir.
Okay, then thank you. We'll finish it here today, and we'll see you on 5th of June, 11 a.m.
Okay, sir.
This will be, PDF will be provided regarding this, and as well as the video materials also will be uploaded in the YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.